Okay, so welcome to this webinar. I'm Mark. I am joined by my lovely co-host, Sonsolis. Together we are throwing this webinar. We're hosting this webinar. And we want to talk about the robots are coming. You know, like the robots are coming. This is a challenge. This is going to disrupt society. It's going to disrupt the job market. We think, Sonsolis and I think, that this is going to have a huge impact on the future of work. And so we want to help you guys prepare for that future. I think if you're unaware of this future, if it catches you unaware, this could really be a problem. Your career could really go into kind of like a dead end. So we want to give you two solutions that we think will help you safeguard your career and guarantee that you have meaningful work for at least the next decade. And so that's what we want to share with you today. Yeah. So Sonsolis, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, indeed, because when we talk about robots, I mean, everyone tends to think about the tech aspects of it, you know, how to program the robots. What are these robots going to be doing? Are they going to be helping us? You know, but there is another aspect that hardly anyone speaks about, and that is the relational aspect. What is all this robot Armageddon going to do to our interpersonal connections at work? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to organize labor? How are we going to organize the work? I mean, look at this slide. It's just one guy surrounded by lots of robots. Imagine that this is a real scenario. What is this going to do to team efficiency? How are decisions going to be made? Like imagine an industry in which safety is very important, let's say aviation. And there is really a safety issue. Who is going to make the decision? Is it going to be the robot? Is it going to be the person? So we will have to learn to be very intelligent when it comes to relating to our team members, but we will have to become also very skilled in order to relate to the robots, because I believe that we will have to collaborate with them as well. So during this webinar, we are going to be focusing on the tech. That will be your job, Mark, and I will be more about the people skills, everything that has to do with interpersonal relationships and efficiency. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like we have this hybrid philosophy where we say don't just focus on tech, but also look at people skills, look at interpersonal skills, look at team collaboration skills. Really make sure that you're ready for this future. You need to focus on both. Quick announcements before I go to the next slide. We are going to give a present to you guys at the end of this webinar. So you'll get a nice present. Actually, you'll get two presents. You'll get one from me and one from Sonsolis. So stick around till the end to collect it. All right, let's get started. So I am Marc Farragher, and together with Sonsolis Alonso, we are going to host this webinar for you. So let's do a quick introduction. Very impolite, I start with myself. I should have started with you, Sonsolis, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
Yeah, yes, you forgive me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so here's a little summary of who I am. So my name is Marc Farragher, nice to meet you. I have a history of doing weird stuff in my career. Like for example, in 2001, 18 years ago, I built the first video phone in the world, with true eye contact. So it was this prototype, this research prototype. We had like this mirror at a 45-degree angle. We had a camera behind it. And if you looked in on the screen of the video phone, and you looked directly into the eyes of your participants, then that person would see an image of you looking directly in their eyes. So we had calibrated our video phone on the eye contact line. So you had non-verbal communication. You could look people directly in the eye and communicate non-verbally. So in 2001, this was a complete revolution. The thing ran on .NET, by the way. I programmed the whole thing in C# and .NET, which was also quite weird for the time. A couple of years later, I built a YouTube. I had a working YouTube prototype in 2004, and my business partner and I were trying to pitch it to mobile phone companies, and it was a complete disaster. None of the mobile phone carriers believed in it. I remember I went to Vodafone and I showed them this prototype. I said, look, I've got my mobile phone. I filmed something. It goes on the web. I can invite my family to look at it. And they were like, this is never going to work. So we spent a year trying to sell it. No one wanted it. So then we just gave up. And then 1 year later, in 2005, the real YouTube appeared. And another year later, they got bought by Google for, what was it? Like 1 billion or 200 million, like a crazy amount of money. So in a different universe, in a different reality, I'm the owner of YouTube. So anyway, I like to believe that. So I started in C# in 2001, and before that, I worked with COM objects in Visual Basic 6. So my career actually starts in 1995. So I have more than 20 years experience in tech. And during that time, I founded 2 startups. I founded 2 startups in the Netherlands. And what I'm doing now, online machine learning training, is my 3rd startup. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. And that picture that you see right there is me. So in my past life, I used to paraglide. And what you see there is I'm paragliding in the Swiss Alps. And you're probably wondering, like, okay, so who took the picture? You know, my brother is also a former paraglider. So we were flying next to each other. My brother had the camera and he turned and took a picture of me in flight. So that's me in the photo. So I'm not doing this anymore, but I used to fly a paraglider. If you want to know more about me, just go to their website, machinelearningadvantage.com. All right, over to you, Sonsoles. Who are you?
Well, I would say now for something else, drum roll. I have a completely different past than Marc. I was actually a performing pianist of contemporary music in the Netherlands. I did that for 17 years. And I had, prior to that, I had earned a master's degree in New York. You know, I am actually classically trained, but in the Netherlands, I specialized in everything that was avant-garde, everything that was modern, and everything that was different. So I used, for instance, marbles in order to play the piano, and also lots of pickups in order to alter the sounds of the piano. Believe it or not, the reason why we get a sound out of the piano is not just because we hit a key, but because that key is connected to a hammer that hits a string, and that is what produces sound. So if you are to place objects, like for instance marble or pickups on those strings, you can alter the sound of the piano. So needless to say, I had a really good time doing to pianos everything that you officially were not supposed to be doing with pianos. And since we are talking about robots today, yeah, I wanted to tell you that I have been a robot on the stage. I had composers when I was a pianist who wrote pieces for me. And some of them had a theatrical elements. So one of the composers made me play the piano pretending like I was a robot. I reinvented my career 8 years ago, so this is very important for everyone who is here today listening, because I think job reinvention is going to be like, you know, being able to do that is going to be one of the most important skills that you can acquire right now, and that you will have to continue to develop, you know, in the years to come. A fun fact, I was born on a volcano. What does that mean? I was born on the island of Tenerife in the Canary Islands. So I don't know if you have heard of the Teide volcano, but it's my favorite place in the world. And every time that I visit those islands, I really have to go to the top of the Teide. So that's me, a little different than Marc.
Awesome. So yeah, we come from completely different places, but we both were fascinated by the future of work and by the robot revolution that's coming. Yeah. And we both have a philosophy about that. And we discovered that our philosophies kind of mesh together, and it's like one consistent story that we want to share with you.
Yeah. And we do have one thing in common, of course, and that is also technology. In a way, both Mark and I are inventors. I mean, he was speaking about YouTube, but I also use technology to play the piano, which means that I worked very closely with many sought after developers in the Netherlands. So that's another one of, that is definitely one of our links.
Yeah. Like I'm a coding geek and you're a music/tech geek. Am I saying that correctly?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I will have to ask my former colleagues what they think about that, but it's okay.
All right, so let me give you a quick overview of what's coming. So we're looking at a robot revolution. The robots are coming. Oh my God, it's going to have a profound impact on the job market. These are a couple of reports. I mean, I spent 5 minutes Googling and I found these 3 reports, but they're everywhere. The one at the top, it shows a bunch of jobs. It's just a list of jobs, and so you got these horizontal bars. The black area of those bars, that's all the jobs taken away by automation. So that's robots doing the work. So the total length of the bar is how many jobs there are in total. And the black area is everything that's gone because the robots are doing it. So the little white bit that is left is what's left for us humans. So if you look at the top job on the chart, it says retail salesperson. So you can see that there's more than 4 million jobs in the US, like 4.5 million jobs. And most of them are taken away by the robots. So there's like 400,000 left for people, basically, and everything else is automated. And of course, it depends on the type of job, if robots are able to do it well or not very well. But the thing is, it changes every year. Robots get better and better and better at doing our jobs. So that black area, it's starting out all the way on the right of the graph, but it's kind of creeping into the left. And every year will be a bit worse. So you can see that registered nurses, it's like the first white bar in the chart, is mostly white because robots really suck at being nurses. Like the bedside manner of a computer is not very good, I can tell you that. But that will change. Robots will learn how to hold conversations in the future, and they will get better and better and better at it. And there will come a point where most of the nurses in hospitals are machines. That will happen. So that white area, that's the current state of play, and that's the respite we have right now, and it's shrinking every year. Now, if you look at a couple of future projections, PwC predicted that in 10 years' time, so in 2030, 10 years' time, 38% of all jobs in the USA are automated. 38%. So PwC, sorry, PwC. It's an average prediction. It's a bit conservative. There's another consultancy firm called Frey and Osborne, and they are much more aggressive, basically, in their projections. They predict that in 10 years' time, 47% of all jobs in the US are gone. They're all automated. So imagine if that's true, if they are correct, that means that half of all jobs in the United States in 10 years' time are gone. Look, poof, gone, all automated. And of course, I mean, automation creates new jobs, but the problem is the blue-collar work gets automated and it gets replaced with white-collar work. So we have a huge challenge that we have to re-educate people, educate them really fast for new jobs. We're taking away jobs at the bottom of the market and reintroducing them at the top. So this is going to be a huge challenge. It's quite realistic, I think, to say that automation, the coming of the robots, is going to have a profound impact on the job market, and that you have to plan for this. You really have to plan for this, because if you don't, it will catch you unaware, and all of a sudden your job will be gone. You know, you have a job, you've been working in the same company for 10, 15 years. You feel secure, you feel safe, so you haven't studied a lot, you know, there's no lifelong learning. You've kind of settled into your daily routine, and all of a sudden, poof, there's a robot that can do your job better and cheaper, and boom, you're gone. So what are you going to do? You need to prepare for that future, and we're going to help you with that. So, oh my God, right? Oh my God, it's like, panic.
No.
So what do you think? Put it in the chat. What do you think right now? Like, are you worried? Tell us if you're worried or not. Balajit says, "Oh my God, John is not worried. Awesome, good to see that." Cassos is not worried.
Not worried.
Nice.
You will retire.
Tom's going to be retired by then. All right. Lucky you. So I'm 48. So if I would retire at 65, I still have a bit more than a decade to go. So not in that position yet. Gaurav is not worried. Rubem, not really for now. Okay. So I appreciate your optimism. But be careful, eh? Like automation is an exponential curve. If you're subscribed to my newsletter, I sent out a blog post, I think a couple of weeks ago, where I described this computer system that can write code. So it's like really, it's like this nightly build engine, and it takes software, it runs it through a bunch of tests, and then if one of the unit tests fails, it actually fixes the code. So it looks into this library of quick fixes for common problems, and then it tries to apply this fix to the code, and then does the nightly build again. So it's like the software is already fixing bugs in software. You know, that's a programmer's job. That was manual labor until now. It's been automated. There's a system that can fix bugs. So be careful. Even if you think, hey, I'm in tech and I don't have to worry, be careful. This stuff can really catch you unaware. So question from Stenli, how about engineering work? I don't see it in the graph. Well, I had all these graphs stacked on top of each other, so it was probably hidden by one of the other charts. So engineering work, I guess it depends on what you do. That's engineering work. There's a whole scope of possible work. If any part of the job that is mechanical and easy to describe in a set of standardized rules and procedures can be automated. So basically anything that requires creativity and flexibility is hard to automate, but everything that's left over can be automated. All right. Let's move on. So we have two solutions. So tell us.
Yeah, indeed, because as you see in the picture, there are two yellow lines that become one. And that is because the two solutions that we offer are actually both tech and people skills. So if you want to be successful today and the next 10 to 20 years, you need to focus on both things at the same time. So you need to ditch binary thinking. It's not one or the other, but it is one and the other, tech and people skills. I wanted to say also that, for the people who are worried, we have gone through many transformations before. We used to live in agricultural societies. And now, we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and we are talking about robots possibly taking over our jobs. And that scares a lot of people, and that makes sense. I mean, it's a big change, and it's very uncomfortable when we don't know the variables that are playing out, how many of them and how they will play out in the end. But, think about it. Would you like to go back to a time when you cannot have tap water, but you have to walk a long distance in order to get water from a well? Or would you like to not be able to drive a car and instead have to transport yourself in a carriage being pulled by horses? Of course not. No one wants to go back to that. So our only solution is actually to keep that in mind and realize that the world has been in constant change all the time, and that it has become actually in many regards a much better place. So, but of course, it's an uncomfortable transition. So what is the solution? The solution is to strategize. The solution is to level up your skills, your technical skills, but also your people skills. And the solution is also keeping that awareness that the world has changed a lot over the centuries and will continue to change. Yeah, so when it comes to jobs, it's not like we learn a set of skills and then they stay like that. You know, you can go to sleep, so to speak. But today, the message is that the most important skill that we can have is actually being able to reinvent ourselves. So all of you who are here present during this webinar, actually, I see you as early adopters. You are the people who understand this. So, and based on what I have read in the chat, I believe that most of you see actually opportunities in this situation that we are going through right now. So maybe you can go to the next slide, Mark.
Will do. Quick announcement. If you've joined this webinar after we have already started, stick around until the end because we're going to give you a present. Sonsolos and I are going to give you 2 presents for attending this webinar. So stick around.
Yeah, so this is a fantastic slide by Hugh MacLeod. So there is robot work and there is artist work. And you know, the slide of robot work is much bigger. That doesn't mean that it is more important. That means that the robot work is going to be done by robots and by people programming those robots. And the artist work, that will be done for now, at least, by humans, yeah? So all of you are already focusing on tech skills. And maybe you are looking at this little slide, slice, the artist work, and you are thinking, but I am not an artist, you know, I am just working, you know, in software, and maybe you don't identify with this work. But artist work today means people skills. It means everything that has to do with leadership. It means everything that has to do with creativity. Yeah, so it means also, by the way, super important because this is a very crucial part of leadership. It means also having the right skills for good use of power, because actually the upcoming robots is going to disrupt, you know, not only how we relate to each other, but how we relate to these robots. We were talking before about how decisions will be made. So when you look at this slides, artist work, yeah, it has to do with people skills, it has to do with leadership, it has to do with good power use, and it has to do with creativity, which, you know, in big terms means being able to solve big problems. It doesn't mean that you have to paint works of art. Yeah. So I was just curious, how many of you have robot skills and how many of you, people skills, the way it is now?
That's a nice way to describe it. Huh? So so robot skills are the skills that are
I think today
technical.
Yeah, I think today we can talk about robot skills as do you have the skills to program a robot, or do you have the skills to get along with people and to be able to make an impact in the workplace? Are you able to lead upwards? And also in all directions?
Yeah, put it in the chat. So I want to see, I am a robot, I'm an artist, or I am a robot and an artist. Or you can leave out I am a if you don't want to type so much. But let us know what skills you have. So Sonsolos and I, we're both robots and artists at the same time. We've got the robot skills because we're both tech geeks, and we have the artist skills because we enjoy working with people and collaborating and working in teams and so on. But what about you guys? So Stenli, what we mean with robot skills is technical skills. Like, can you build a robot? Can you program software? Rubem says, I'm a hybrid, I've got both. That's awesome. You are ready for the future. Marc Hartsuiker has both skills. Fantastic.
So I'm curious, is there anyone here who has the ambition of becoming a leader within an organization?
Yeah, you want to really cultivate your artist skills, really take them to the next level. You want to become a super artist, like a fantastic networker. You know, you're a super networker. You work great with people. You're an awesome team collaborator, and then people just come to you and it's like, hey, I want you to manage our team because you're awesome. Maybe you have that kind of effect on people. John says, already a leader. Awesome, John. Nice work. Pavel says, you're working on becoming a coder. Well, that's the opposite, I would say, of the artist. So that kind of answers the question. Stenli says, I can build software. So you're an awesome robot. Balajit says, I too am already a leader. Nice work. Guelmis on the Facebook Live says, I'm more of a robot than an artist. So there's something to work on, Guelmis.
So one of the reasons why, sorry, no, go ahead. Okay.
And yeah, Gaurav on the Facebook Live says it's 50-50, so equally balanced. Nice.
No, the reason why I was curious about this is because there are already many experiments to automate middle management. So I think, yeah, I was just curious how many of you have the ambition to be a CEO or a CTO or you know, a CDO, any kind of C position, because I think that developing your artist skills are going to be crucial if you want to stay, you know, in the job market for the long haul.
Think about the future of work. Like, how would you get work? You can imagine that most employee positions, like if you're an employee for a large company, that will slowly turn into what we have in the gig economy already. So it's going to be mostly mechanical work supporting a fleet of robots. It's going to be boring. It's going to be very unstable work. You will have no job security and the pay will be a race to the bottom. If you want to have meaningful work in the future, you're going to have to get that work from networks, from your people skills, from the people who know you, people who have worked with you in the past, people who begin startups. And it's like, we need a good CTO. Let's call, I don't know, like, let's call SAS, you know, because I know that person is an awesome, awesome CTO. Let's bring him into our company. So that's, you want to be on people's radar. And for that, you really need the artist skills. You need to cultivate your artist work. It's going to be super important.
Yeah.
Haha, John Thomson says, even robots need maintenance and servicing. I love that. Yep, I mean, running after robots with a screwdriver, you know, and making sure they keep working is going to be a very profitable job. But maybe you're selling yourself a bit short, you know, if you do that. Building the robots is a step up. It's going to be a better job. And being the person creating the companies that use robots to achieve goals will be the top spot. And for that, you need the artist skills. John, robots will build robots. No, maybe eventually, but it's going to take a long while. You wouldn't believe how complicated that is. Robots will not build other robots in the near future. There will always be people in the loop there.
Yeah, plus also, I mean, what is a robot? Because today they are not super intelligent, but they are gaining more emotional intelligence, for instance. And in the future, you know, will a robot be the same thing that it is today? How much more intelligent will that robot be? You know, how much more IQ will it have? How much more emotional intelligence will it have? Will it also have social intelligence, because you will have to communicate with, you know, other people? So yeah, so what a robot is today is not necessarily what a robot is going to be in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there's one thing I want to add, and that's you have to be aware of tipping points. You know, in climate change, we have these tipping points where, you know, the Earth slowly gets warmer, and then all of a sudden, all the Arctic ice melts, and then the whole climate gets thrown into a new equilibrium. The same thing happens in the job market. When certain innovations become mature, all of a sudden, there's a huge chunk of the job market that can be automated. For example, have you guys seen the Google Duplex demo? This Google app that can make a phone call. Google had this demo where somebody was typing on their phone and saying, you know, I want to book a haircut. And then the Google bot said, hey, don't worry, I'm going to arrange everything for you, you know. And then Google actually made a phone call to the hair salon and was talking on the phone to the person of the hair salon and making the booking, you know, and saying, yeah, I'm calling on behalf of this person and I want to make a booking for a haircut, yada, yada, yada. So did you see that? Okay, now think about that. Imagine if I have a server room full of Google duplexes. You know, I have like 1,000 instances. What can I do? Completely obvious. The first thing I can do is I can automate a call center. I could create a call center where I have 1,000 duplex instances, all doing phone calls, going to call scripts, calling people, robocalling basically, but actually holding conversations on anything. They could promote products, they could do survey robocalls, they could do political campaign marketing. So basically, if you have a job in a call center right now, I think your job is safe for maybe 3-4 more years, and then it's gone. Because we can literally automate call centers right now. The reason it's not happening yet is because Google has not open sourced their duplex software. They're holding it in the company inside, so the code is not yet available. As soon as they open source this code, all the call centers are gone. They're all automated. So that's a tipping point. So beware of tipping points. Whole sectors can disappear overnight because of these effects.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on? Here we go. Okay, so this is the part where I talk for a bit. So one of the two solutions that we are offering is you got to learn how to build a robot. You got to be part of the crew of people that build the robots. Now, Sansolos and I are using this word robot all the time, but it's not the robots that you should be worried about, but the software running the robots. I mean, when we say the robots are coming, we always have this vision of these mechanical robots, you know, that walk upright and that are literally coming for us. And they're either coming for our jobs or they're trying to kill us all, you know, in an apocalyptic scenario. So it's always these mechanical things, these creatures, these machines. T-1000, Rubem, exactly, you know, the Terminator. But what is much more dangerous is the software, the deep learning and machine learning software that is powering the robots, because that is what is taking away the jobs. So when I say learn how to build the robots, what I actually mean is learn how to develop machine learning applications. That's the most important skill you can cultivate right now if you're in tech and if you have developer responsibilities. So I would say all the way up to CTO level, learn how to build machine learning apps. It's a fantastic skill. It's what you won't believe what it will do to your career. It will safeguard your career for at least the next 10 years, maybe longer. So that might sound complicated, but it's actually quite simple. So here I've created this mind map, this diagram of all the machine learning algorithms, that are in play right now. So there's a whole bunch of strategies that we have. We have supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So with supervised learning, the software, we train the software to perform a certain task. For example, recognize images. Like we hold up an image to an app and it has to guess what kind of animal is in the image. Like it's a giraffe, that's an elephant, that's a dog, that's a cat, that's a snake, you know? And every time when the machine gets trained, we tell it the answer. So we hold up a picture and we say, this is a snake. And the software says, I think that's an elephant. And then it knows right away, wait, that's incorrect because it's a snake. Okay, so the machine can basically train itself because it has all the answers. So it's called supervised learning. And there's two algorithms for that, regression and classification. And you can learn that. They're very simple. You probably had the regression in school. I mean, it's taught in high school. There's also unsupervised learning, which is really cool, where we show millions of images to a computer, and the computer figures everything out on its own. So it starts to cluster all these animals it's seeing, and it says, okay, I've got 1,000 pictures here of this gray blob with little things sticking out of it, a tentacle sticking out of it. I have no idea what it is, but it's definitely the same kind of animal. And then at the end of training, we can step in, we can say, that's an elephant. We call those things elephants. And the machine is like, oh, okay, that's cool. So that's called unsupervised learning. The machine is learning and creating clusters of related data on its own. Super cool. Then there's ensemble learning, which is basically learning patterns in data using a couple of very specific algorithms. You've got boosting, stacking, and bagging. I won't go into that right now. And the most popular area of machine learning right now is neural networks. Neural networks and deep learning. That's where all the action is. Like neural networks, that's super hot right now. And that's actually most of what I'm teaching in my online classes. It's mostly neural networks. And neural networks are super cool because they used to suck in the past. But now, because we have these GPUs, these graphical processors, we can train neural networks at an unbelievable pace. We can create massive networks and we can train them reasonably fast on huge data sets. So we can have like millions of images and show them to a neural network and it can learn what's in the pictures. And so there's a lot of activity, a lot of research in neural networks right now, and it's very exciting. In one of my courses, I teach computer vision. So we're teaching a neural network to recognize dogs and cats. And we use a neural network architecture that was invented in 2014. So that's only 5 years ago. So we're working with cutting edge innovations, so to speak. So it's a super exciting field, and it's not hard to learn. So I urge you to take a look at deep learning, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, and focus on these algorithms that you see on this slide, and learn them. They're easy to learn. So if you're in the Microsoft sphere, if you're a C# or .NET developer, then there's a very cool development. There's a library coming called ML.NET. It's Microsoft's machine learning library. It's not finished yet, so that's why it says preview. But Microsoft has basically abandoned all their existing machine learning projects, and they're focusing all their effort into ML.NET. So everything else is basically stopped, and all their efforts go into ML.NET. Now, ML.NET is a really powerful library. Microsoft uses internally for Azure and Bing, and they've open sourced it. So the whole source code is online. You can tap into it. It runs on .NET Core, so it's multi-platform, runs on Linux, Windows, and Mac. So you get this really broad domain of devices where you can run this code. And it's really powerful. It can do most machine learning tasks. It's also really fast. So it's a beautiful library. So if you're in the C# domain, for God's sakes, look at ML.NET. Try to learn ML.NET. It's not hard to learn, and it will get you a huge edge in the job market. It will get you a level up in your career. So if you're interested, look at github.com, .NET machine learning. That's where all the source code is. So super interesting stuff. And then when you build these apps, you can quickly build very advanced applications in Windows, in C#, in .NET, just by using online services, using ML.NET, wiring up some frameworks. I'm going to show you an app. It's only 250 lines of C# code, and I think it's pretty cool. So I'm going to unplug my headsets because the app is going to play through the loudspeaker of my laptop. So I hope you can hear it. Check this out. Here we go. Show me a picture of the cast of Friends.
Check out this picture I found of Lisa Kudrow, Jennifer Aniston, David Schwimmer, Courtney Cox, Matt LeBlanc posing for the camera.
Find me a picture of Elon Musk standing next to a Tesla car.
I found an image of a person standing in front of a car.
Show me a picture of the Big Ben in London.
Check out this picture I found of a large tall tower with a clock on the side of a building.
Who was the third president of the United States?
Check out this picture I found of Thomas Jefferson wearing a suit and tie.
Who is the president of China?
Mark, how about this? A picture of Xi Jinping wearing a suit and tie.
Who is the prime minister of the Netherlands?
Okay, Mark, I found a picture of Mark Rutte wearing a suit and tie.
Back to the headset. So what do you guys think? That's pretty awesome, right? So that is 250 lines of C# code. a bunch of machine learning components all wired together. And I mean, it's pretty awesome. I'm speaking to my computer. I'm just talking, and it understands what I'm saying. It knows what to do. It does this thing for me, and then it talks back at me and it says, "Look, here's what I found." So I can ask questions. I can like, who's the Prime Minister of Holland? What's the name of that Prime Minister of China? You know, I forgot. Who was the third president of the United States? And the app is like, oh, I know that. Let me tell you. So it's, yeah, Rubem, you says it's mind-blowing. Stenli, awesome, fantastic. Rubem, not wearing a tie, exactly. I use the service that describes an image and tells me what's in the image. And it's not entirely accurate. So the Prime Minister of Holland is not wearing a tie, but the machine learning algorithm thinks it's seeing a tie in there. SAS, it's awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So 250 lines of C# code. I mean, you can make any app that you're working on conversational. You can introduce conversational user interfaces to your code easily with this stuff that's just out there. You can just tap into it. So focus on learn how to build the robots, learn how to build machine learning. You know, cultivate this robot skill. If you can do this, if you have this skill, then the next 10 years you will have a job. All the companies that want machine learning solutions for their business will come to you. It's like, hey, we heard that you can do machine learning, you can do deep learning and computer vision and bots. You know, you can build bots. Can you help us with this project? And, you know, you'll be like, yeah, sure. You know, or you can switch jobs, or you can get a promotion because, hey, you know, I would love to head your machine learning department. You know, you have to pay me this many dollars per month. You know, and okay, you got the job. So it's going to be a huge improvement for your career to have this skill. And I mean, automation, it's going to be a thing for at least the next 10, 20 years. So you're going to be at the forefront of automation. So it's pretty awesome. So a couple of questions. Pavel, can I start making a robot from a Raspberry Pi? Yes, you can. Good idea. SAS, can I make a special webinar? Can make special webinar for convert ERP to use automation? Well, this is C#, so you can easily embed this in an ERP system, and most ERP systems are built in either Java or C#. So if you know how to build machine learning apps in C#, you have a huge advantage in the job market. Just saying. All right, so that was my contribution. Now, Sonsoles, over to you. Solution number 2.
Solution number 2. So it is all about people skills, we said, being an artist today. So that will have an impact on how we collaborate as a team and also on leadership. But I would like to show you a picture, which is on the next slide, before I say something about team collaboration and about leadership. So you need to look at this from the left to the right. So many of you are probably familiar with Henry Ford's T model, you know, this black car that used to be a hit, you know, over a century ago. And the thing about this car is that it was manufactured in a so-called assembly line. And in this assembly line, you had different workers, and each one of these workers would focus on one piece of the car. You know, they only knew information that had to do with their own part of the work, with their own piece. And interestingly enough, that is also how organizations designed their structures. You see a sort of pyramid here, but if you look at it horizontally, what you see is also little blocks, yeah, departments that don't communicate with each other. And if you look at it vertically, you see the same thing. We see a hierarchy. We see also departments that don't communicate with each other. So today, things have changed radically. People don't know for how long they will have their job. People don't know what jobs they will be doing in the future. In fact, the jobs of the future have not been invented yet. The market is uncertain. In other words, there is a lot of uncertainty, there is a lot of volatility, variables are changing all the time. And the reason why many organizations are not thriving today and they are having a lot of trouble is because they are trying to thrive in this uncertainty using these structures, these rigid structures of the industrial era. Yeah, these rigid structures from the time of Henry Ford. So another way of defining what it is to be an artist today, and herein lies really an opportunity for all of you, is in being able to transition from this model of, vertical and horizontal departments that do not talk to each other, to a type of organization, as it is on the right, that is well networked. Yeah. So what you see on the right-hand side is pods. Yeah. So some people talk about a podular organization. Yeah. So being an artist today, from an organizational perspective, from a perspective of people skills, could be being able to manage this transformation of organizations from being a pyramid, yeah, as in the left, to being a pod, as it is on the right-hand side. So if you can give me the next slide, Mark.
I can do that. Here we go.
By the way, that illustration is from a book by Dave Gray, which is called The Connected Company. It's really a good read. So pods and teams, a modern team is an interdependent group of people. This is completely different than what happens in this pyramid. In the pyramid, if you have a team, what happened, and still happens unfortunately, is that there is this belief that if a team is not working, a tech team, for instance, if things are not going well, that the person who is not working well for the team needs to be identified. It needs to be also diagnosed. It needs to be taken out of the team. It needs to be fixed and then put back, and then the team will be fine. Now, that doesn't work anymore. That comes from that pervasive way of thinking of organizations and of teams as vertical and horizontal lines. But we cannot be successful today in volatility, in a world that is round and global, with that kind of thinking. So today, we know that if you take out a team member and you fix it and you put it back, you have not solved the problem. You can bring in a new team member and you will have, a new set of problems. And why is that? Because a team works together as a unit. It's like a body, all of those team members, they are not just individuals working together, but the sum of all of these people is bigger than the parts. If you look at recruitment, it's the same kind of thinking. We need to replace this person with another person. But then the person goes to that organization, the new one, and things are not working. And what is the normal thing to do? Let's fix, this by getting rid of this person and hiring a new one. And in my experience, this, rarely solves the problem. So today, you need to look as a team, if you are an artist, as an organism, as a body that interacts together. Yeah. A modern team is also a team that aligns around common goals. What does that mean? If you look at normal organizations, there are lots of discussions about who is right. Are we going to use this technology or that technology? Who is right about this? Who is doing what to whom when there is a conflict? So in a modern team, that is not important. That is not the focus of the work. Yeah. What we need to do is be aware of all of the different opinions that are in the team and select those that really align with the goal at hand. It's not important who is right. What is important is what is the right thing that needs to happen. A modern team has also a clear and deliberate system to delegate. I have a delegation course. It's one of the most successful online courses that I have ever given. And that is because there is a lot of conflict in most teams and they don't know how to delegate the work. Now, this can be done in a very no-nonsense way. And I actually have a system that I developed by working with Dutch artists in the Netherlands. A modern team is also one that prototypes everything, not just products and services, but also strategies, because, you know, the world is in continuous flux. Things are changing all the time. So you cannot set things on stone and say, this is the product or the service or the strategy, and that's it. And now I go to sleep and, you know, it's done. No. You need a prototype, you need to test it in the market, and then you need to continue iterating as you move along. Yeah? And a modern team also knows the difference between accessing as much information as possible and making decisions. And what do I mean with this? There are always a million ways of doing things, and many organizations are really skeptical of inviting all of these different opinions into, you know, into the workplace. And a modern team knows that in order to make well-informed decisions, you need to invite all these different types of information. And modern teams know also that making decisions, yeah, is a different thing than inviting that information. In other words, that you invite information doesn't mean that everyone gets to make decisions. You still can have a deliberate system, as I said, you know, in bullet number 3, in order to know who gets to do what. And the nice thing about such a system, by the way, is that it's very flexible. The more skills people gain, the more autonomy they gain in a modern team. So being an artist today in a tech team means actually having the skills to organize all of these keywords that I have mentioned here: alignment, delegation, prototyping, making decisions. So this is about teams. Maybe you can give me the next slide, Mark.
Can do that. Just want to insert a quick comment. So Marc Hartsuiker, so you're in the Netherlands. They have this tradition there, which they call polderen, right? Where you need to make a decision and everybody gets together in a room and they co-design the decision. For me, that was an eye-opener when I learned about Sonsole's delegation system, that you can invite all this information and you can have this conversation with everybody who's a stakeholder, but you can still structure the decision-making very specifically, very precisely. So you can say, okay, you know, we all vote, or I get your information and then I make the decision, or, you know, we try to get a consensus. There are all these levels of decision-making that you can decide beforehand. So this is the delegation system is really awesome to structure the polderen approach that exists in the Netherlands.
Yeah, and it's a very no-nonsense way. I mean, the nice thing is that everyone is invited to you know, to the table in order to come up with this system, and it removes a lot of conflict and a lot of discussions, unnecessary discussions from the team. So it's a very nice way of organizing the work, and, you know, as I said, it's a flexible system. So the more skills that you acquire, the more autonomy and the more decision power you are given. So you can move, you know, through these different levels of decision making. So yeah. So regarding the artist's work and leadership, what you see in this picture is Zod, Neil before Zod. That is also how things were organized in that pyramid that I showed you in the previous slide. This is a model of leadership that has been around also like for forever, and one that doesn't work when you have pods, when you have a well-networked group of people. So if you look at today's work environment, what we see is the rise of the knowledge worker. You know, the worker of today is not the worker that used to be in an assembly line, who only needed to know a tiny bit of the car. The knowledge worker has a lot of knowledge, you know, but it's also connected through mobile devices to all kind of networks. Yeah. So in a workplace with knowledge workers, this system of leadership, of kneeling before a leader who is supposed to have all the information, doesn't work anymore. Which brings me to number 3. In today's workplace, position of power, yeah, is not everything. In fact, what we are seeing more and more is that a leader has often, you know, a lot of position of power, but the people who are reporting to him or her are in fact knowledge workers who have more knowledge than the leader about the thing that needs to be done. Yeah. So this brings me to number 4. So modern collaboration, collaborating like an artist in the workplace today, I see that actually as an exchange of different ranks. So what I mean is, you are the leader, you have high position of power. Okay, you know that has value because there are certain decisions that you can take. But someone in the team has high technical rank. That is also valuable when you are doing a project. Yeah, you cannot say that one is more important than the other. You need them both. Then you have a third person in the team who is really very good at, let's say, solving conflicts. That person has, in that sense, a very high rank. That is also a valuable rank. So today, if you want to be successful, if you want to thrive in that uncertainty, in that volatility, you can look at collaboration as an exchange of ranks, right? So today, if you look at organizations, the most interesting work is not happening within departments, but is happening in the space between departments and in the space also between organizations. You know, what you see more and more is that a team is formed to develop a certain product, and people from other teams get picked up and also from other departments, and they form a team, they solve that problem, and they disband again. And then something else needs to happen within that organization, and a new team forms, etc. So the most interesting work today is really happening across teams and departments. If you are able to organize that properly today, if you are able to create such a networked group of people working towards the realization of a project, then you are also an artist of the workplace. And in number 5, I say something about distributed power, and this is actually something that we can learn from the robots, believe it or not. So if you look at electric cars, you know, an electric car will take you from A to B, and it will do so safely, you know, with no accidents. And it will happen because that car is communicating with other cars, yeah, that all have an overview of an entire city, of an entire country, of maybe even the whole world in the future. So this system, this interconnected system, yeah, is sharing information and is building upon each other's information to bring me safely from A to B, but also to bring you safely from A to B, and to bring everyone safely from A to B who is traveling at the same time. So if you look at old-fashioned leaders, like the one that we have in this picture, they used to hoard power. Information was power, but that doesn't work today. So leaders today need to actually learn from robots and push power and decision-making into all of the corners of the team and of the organization. It sounds counterintuitive, but a leader who does that is able to control the situation that he's in. He won't be able to control the market. He won't be able to control the ever-changing variables, but by giving power to more and more people, he will be able to thrive as in his business. So Yeah, I only wanted to add a little thing in the next slide about, we talked about teams, how a modern team is not segmented, but it is an organism that works as a whole. But I envision a future in which humans will also be working with the robots. So we have this obsession with binary thinking. It is either one thing or the other, tech skills or artist skills. No, it is one and the other. We also say, oh, either the robots will win or the humans will win. Well, no, it is not like that either. It's not a binary thing. I envision a future in which robots and humans will be working. And that's why I talked about a extended collaborative systems intelligence. This sounds very abstract, yeah, but a system is, as I said, a group of people who have a relationship of interdependence. So a team is that. Robots, as in the example of the car that I named, that is also a system, is, interdependent cars sharing information. And in the future, being an artist of the workplace will be being in touch with this extended collaboration between both humans and the robots. So things like emotional intelligence, things like social intelligence, things like power intelligence, things like systems intelligence. These are all the things that will make you an artist of the workplace, and that will guarantee that you can have a job for I don't know, at least 10 years, maybe 15. We cannot look ahead. The only thing that we can do is keep moving with times. But I think if you learn this, it will be good to go for at least 10 to 15 years. So,
awesome.
Yeah, so that's, yeah.
So what went through my mind as I heard that is, if I go back one slide, if you look at these skills, these things that that you talked about, robots suck at all of this. I mean, robots are not very good at using power. Robots will issue instructions, or it will listen for instructions, and it can't navigate this power space. Robots are. They're not very good at leading. They're not very good at team building. It's robots. The people skills of robots are not very good at the moment. So you're cultivating skills that the machines cannot automate for the foreseeable future. But in this new environment where all these jobs are disappearing and there's this huge chaos in the workspace, there's a constantly changing environment. So there's going to be no certainty. These skills are also really, really good to have. Because if you're in an environment where the only certainty is that there is no certainty, then the ability to quickly create teams and work on a project together, and then disassemble the team and form a new team and work on a new project is absolutely key. It will really save you getting through uncertain times. I think, Sonsoles, I keep forgetting what VUCA stands for, but I think that's the acronym, right?
Yeah, so volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So basically, big mess. Lots of wicked problems, lots of sticky problems.
Yeah.
And so we cannot solve those problems with this pyramid, of vertical and horizontal departments. It simply doesn't work, and that's the reason why so many organizations are failing today. They are attempting to be successful at solving wicked problems with very rigid structures, and it simply doesn't work. So we need more artists who can create pods, networks of people.
Yay, artists.
Networks of teams, yes, yay.
Yay for the artists. So you remember what I said earlier in the webinar, that everything that has clear rules that can be written down and that are easy to interpret can be automated, because then we can just tell the robots, look, these are the rules, just do this. Everything Sonsoles has been telling you in the last 10 minutes has no clear rules. There are no rules for what Sansolis has told you so far. These are creative, artistic, fuzzy skills that are difficult to define. You can learn them, you can get really good at them, but they are hard to define, hard to quantify into rules.
Yeah.
And that means that robots will not be able to do them for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So considering that that middle management is going to be automated, if you really want to progress in your career, and you know, you will have to learn these fuzzy skills. And I have no idea why they are called soft skills, because they are not easy at all. They are not soft. They are actually quite difficult to acquire. So,
Yep.
but yeah.
If you're in middle management, get out of middle management right now. Go up.
Yep.
Get to the top management. Because middle management is still a human job right now, but I have seen prototypes, research prototypes of machine learning systems that automate middle management.
Yeah.
And in the world right now, there are a couple of companies, less than 5, so very few companies, that are experimenting with fully automated middle management. So these are computers that are hiring people, they are firing people, they are creating job performance reports of people, they are issuing daily instructions to people. So it's this is first line management, 100% automated. So, I mean, these are prototypes. So these are early adopter companies experimenting with this technology. But I mean, if today they are experimenting with this technology, it means in 10 years, everybody will use it. So if you're a middle manager, you're going to be out of a job. I'm sorry to say, you will be out of a job. Yes, it will happen.
Or if you thought that that would be a good career move, then you know it's not the case. That's not a good path to follow. So for real success in the future, you really need to be looking beyond that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So yeah, I think we can sum it up like this, right? It's so this is a slide from Gaping Void, a drawing from the Gaping Void, and so it says, "She who creates the future controls the future. He or she who creates the future controls the future," and that is the message that we want to give to you. Start creating your future, because that will give you a modicum of control over your future.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So.
All right. So we've reached the point, I think, where we start handing out presents. So I'll go first. So my present to you is a little starter kit that will help you get up to speed with machine learning in C#. So this is a bit of code that this is a famous challenge in machine learning right now. It's teaching computers how to read handwriting. So when there's handwriting on paper, or that's machines can look at it through a camera or an image, and they can they can read the handwriting. So it's optical character recognition. This app will look at numbers. So it will process digits, and it will predict the digits that it's seeing. So if you go to that link at the bottom, you'll get a zip file. It's 2 projects. You can open them in Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio. It's C# code, and one app will train the neural network. So it will train the network on thousands of training images, and prepare the network for use. And the other app is a little demo app, and it will use the trained neural network. You can scribble on a canvas, and it will try to predict the number. So you can see in this still that I created, the screenshot, I've drawn a 4 on the canvas, and you can see the neural network is pretty confident. Now you can see that there's a tiny bar at the 7 as well, and you can see the 7 in there. Right? I mean, if we ignore that upward stroke at the top, then it actually does look like a 7. So you can see that this neural network really does pattern recognition. It's looking at the pattern of the black stripe, and it's relating that to a digit from 0 to 9. And the longer you train it, the more accurate it will get. So this is just a little test project to very quickly get you up to speed with machine learning, and to show you how easy it is to learn machine learning, how to do machine learning in C#. So after you've looked at the code, if you're interested, I've got a course in machine learning. It's called the Machine Learning Advantage. It's a 6-week course, and I repeat the course every 3 months. So I'll give the course 3 to 4 times per year. The next one is, it starts in the first week of March. And so it's not an evergreen course. I mean, you've got this time window to sign up, and then it just closes for 3 months, and then it reopens 3 months later. So the next time I'll give it will be in August, probably. Check it out if you're interested. It's at machinelearningadvantage.com. It's a 6-week course, and it will get you fully up to speed. So the course is just packed with everything that I showed you in that slide. You remember? Supervised learning, unsupervised learning, neural networks, yada yada. That's all in there. It's a 6-week program, and you will build apps every day. So it's a unique course. There's nothing like this on the market right now, because I teach you machine learning in C#. Every other course teaches you machine learning in Python, but I do it in C#. And as far as I know, there is no other course on the market right now that teaches C# machine learning. So that's unique. But what I also did is, in this course, it's completely hands-on. So every day you build an app. So that thing with the handwriting, that's 1 day in the course, and there are 30 assignments in total. So there's 29 other apps that you will be building. So we do self-driving cars, we do, keep the self-driving car on the road, recognize traffic signs, we do this emotion detection, like I'm smiling and the computer has to read my face and say, hey, he's smiling, now he's looking angry, that kind of stuff. So there's 30 apps that you will be developing over a 6-week period. So it's a pretty cool course, if I say so myself. And you don't have to take my word for it. Here's what my students are saying. So there's a bunch of quotes. During this 6 weeks, last year when I gave the course, I had a Word document, and every time when someone said something positive about the course, I immediately wrote it down. So I've got this Word document with quotes. So this is just a little sampling of what people were saying about the course. So these are all students who went through the entire 6-week program, and this is what they had to say about it. So I think it's very cool. So if you're interested, check it out. You can go to machinelearningadvantage.com. There's like a ton of information on that site. It's also where I post my blog posts, and I put webinars on there as well for free. So if you're not interested in the course, but you just want to learn a bit more about machine learning, go there and just check out my blog. That's also very cool. So, Sonsoles, over to you. What's your present?
Yeah, my present is it's a PDF actually that will help you if you're a developer, if you're a techie, in order to to create these networked teams, to become an artist of bots, maybe modular teams. What you will find in there is not only how to create an effective team today so that you can thrive in the workplace, but you will also read back some of the concepts that I talked about today. And I have 2 versions. I see here that this is the modern leaders, but actually the PDF that I will be giving you is the modern developers team collaboration roadmap. So that's my present.
I'm just copying the URLs into the chat.
Okay, yeah.
Come, here we go. So those are 2 of mine. So Sonsoles, if you add yours, then...
Yeah, let me do that. Okay.
So we're going through the slides pretty quickly. So if you forget to copy the link, then you have it.
Here's your present from me. And I mentioned during one of the slides that I have a very successful online course on team delegation based on what I learned as an artist in the Netherlands. We had a very visual, cool system to organize how to delegate the work, and I am now teaching that to teams. So if you would like to read more about that, you can visit the this other link. Let me see if I can type it in as well.
I've just done that.
You just did that? Okay.
Just check if it's okay.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So the next class is next week. I think it's the 13th, and that is almost full. But this is a recurring class, so it takes 2 hours, and in 2 hours I teach you live here in Zoom how to create, you know, these visual maps that help you delegate teamwork without killing each other. So it's a perfect tool for creating peace in a team, and also for making everyone feel valued, and yeah, give everyone also the feeling that the more skills they acquire, the more autonomy they will gain along the way. So it's a happy making tool, because
it's a super cool tool. The delegation tool is fantastic. I had 2 startups in the Netherlands in the past, and my decision-making processes would often break down. I was CTO, and I had a team, and I was very much the command and control manager, where I told my team, do this, do this, do this. What is this? This code sucks, you know, you're fired. Well, you're almost fired. But I had no idea how to delegate correctly. Looking back at, you know, how I behaved as a founder and as a CTO in my companies, I just did not understand delegation at all. And I did not use the full potential of my team. And it's a huge shame, because, you know, my company could have been so much bigger back then. So when I saw Sensolis, when I saw your delegation tool for the first time, I was like, oh my God, now I understand delegation, you know? It's like, I wish I had known this 15 years ago. Oh my God.
Hey, what you're saying is very common. I hear this from my clients a lot. Like they suddenly have a position of more authority, you know, a higher position of power, but in fact they have not received the proper training. So and I hear this all the time. So what you are describing, that's a common scenario. But yeah, this is a happy making tool. I'm all about happy teams, not only efficient, but also happy. And this is very no nonsense. It can be learned in 2 hours. And yeah, it's a flexible tool that gives you the room to grow and to develop yourself further, and your team as well at the same time. So yeah.
Let's be honest, it's going to give you delegation superpowers. It's as simple as that. No, seriously, it's going to give you delegation superpowers. And
okay.
So if you want to learn delegation, do the course. It's really, really good.
Okay, so.
All right, we're at the end of the webinar. Yay, you made it to the end. Okay, so we can take some questions. If you have any questions about what we talked about, put them in the chat. I'm looking at the Facebook Live right now, and there's a question from Guarav. Quick question, what do you think about AI creating AI? It's going to take a while before we reach that point. I mean, we have trouble creating AIs. So having AIs creating AIs, I don't think, I'm pessimistic about that. I'm officially pessimistic. So you always see these horror scenarios where we create an AI, and then the AI improves itself, and then that improved AI improves itself, and then we get this exponential improvement curve that goes boom, you know? And then 1 minute we have an AI that's like at the intelligence level of a dog, and then 20 seconds later it's superhuman, godlike intelligence. I don't believe in that. I think it's very, very hard to create AIs. And I think it's even harder to teach AIs how to create a better AI. So I don't think we're going to see that for a while.
Yeah, also because this goes back to the issue also of power and how decisions are made. Like it will take a while for humans to be able to teach AIs to be, for instance, ethical, in order to use their power correctly, in order to, yeah, so it could happen, but I think it's going to take quite a while. I think raising the IQ of robots is relatively easy, but raising the EQ, that's a different ball game.
I've I'm looking at an article right now. Bob, you linked an article about an OpenAI article. I read that. That's mostly hype. It's not. I didn't take that very seriously. Actually, I could be wrong, but. So, any other questions? I've got a question from Piyush, also in the Facebook Live. Is there multi-language support as well, so it can comprehend other languages? So you're talking about the app demo that I showed earlier. Right now, it's only in English, but let me think. Yeah, the components I use only support English for now. But of course, in the future, you can imagine that other languages will open up as well. So what do you guys think about the future, about the solutions that we offered you? Are you confident that you have the skill set, the tool set now to face the future, to face the onslaught of robotics and the upheaval in the job market? Stanley, I see a question from you. How is the idea started in YouTube? YouTube is equipped with machine learning. What exactly do you mean with that? How is the idea started in YouTube? What do you mean with that?
I think it's probably because you said that you had built a YouTube before YouTube.
Yeah, if you're referring to that, that was in 2004. So there was no machine learning. That was just hosting videos on the internet and sharing it with friends. Okay, question from Balajit. ML.NET versus TensorFlow. Which one is faster? Battle of the frameworks. ML.NET is much faster. Yep. TensorFlow was first on the market, but it is not very fast. It's not efficient code. It's weird because it was created by Google, and you would expect the Google engineers to create this super fast library, but they focused on functionality. They focused on functionality and not on performance. So Microsoft has their own version of TensorFlow called CNTK, the Cognitive Toolkit, CNTK, and it just blows TensorFlow out of the water. Any other questions? So John, you put in the chat, I'm happy to be Skynet's slave. I, for one, look forward to our robot overlords. No, but the future is going to be it's going to be messy. It's going to be very messy. It's going to be, there will be people working for robots, robots working for people, people working with robots. Robots giving orders to people, people giving orders to robots, robots giving orders to other robots. It's going to be very, very messy. So this binary future where all the robots are in power, and humanity is basically delegated to a second tier, that's very black and white thinking. It's not going to be like that. People predict that eventually there will be a war between robots and humans. That might happen, there might be a little skirmish between the two, but it won't be every single human against every single robot. You can bet on that a couple of robots will be anti-human and a couple of robots will be, no, you can't do that, humans are great. And a couple of robots will be like, we don't care. Either way, we're going to be fine. So we don't care which way this turns out. So the future is going to be much more chaotic than the futuristic predictions that we have right now.
Which reinforces the case for the artist side of people, because the more people work on their emotional and social intelligences and they're also power intelligence, the better robots we will build. So that's why these skills are so important as well.
Yeah, exactly. Bob, you're saying it's impossible to stay in front of technology. So my goal is to simply be far enough ahead so that I can continue to be useful for customers. So it's a good strategy. I like that. But you do keep in mind that, remember that pie chart that we showed you with the robot work and the artist work, you were only focusing on the robot work right now. And that's a good strategy, but do also look at the artist part of that pie chart. Because that's the other side of the strategy, to stay ahead of these developments. Balajit, you say, will ML.NET work without a network? Yes, it will. So it's not an online solution. It's something that runs locally. Rubem, make a robot kill switches mandatory. Definitely. We're definitely going to do that. Like a switch, it's like, the robot goes down. But that's definitely going to happen, I think. Eventually, robots are going to get really intelligent and really smart. They might not approve that kill switch. So, when we reach that point, we might have to negotiate with the robots. John says Asimov's rules must apply, the Asimov robot rules. Yes, but keep in mind, the rules that Asimov created are very rigid, and that created the material for all his books. If you think about all the Asimov stories, they're all stories about robots adhering to the rules and still exhibiting unpredictable behavior that was undesired. So even Asimov realized that the rules wouldn't really work in practice, and he created this whole series of books running with that conclusion. Pavel, will all robots use as energy source solid batteries? Dude, how am I supposed to know that? Like some will use solid batteries, yes. Some will use other forms of power, I guess. Keep in mind here, robots are like the visible machines, but the software is doing all the work. Eh? It's the deep learning software and the machine learning software, the neural networks. That's the driver of this whole development, not the mechanical contraptions that we see running around. What else? I'm scrolling through the chat here. Any other comments you have? Let me check the Facebook Live. Gaurav says, when do you think ML.net will be available fully, not as a preview? Very soon. I think 1, maybe 2 months at the latest. So it's about to happen. Plios, any information on developing own library to understand how these machine learning engines work and how to make own from scratch, just for knowledge? You have to do a course for that. So if you want to learn that, you have to do a machine learning course. For example, my course, you could join my course. I mean, we start in March, so if you sign up March and April, you will learn everything about creating machine learning apps. Bob, share this presentation. We are recording this presentation, and we'll share a recording link afterwards. Any other questions? How about the artistic side? Team delegation, leadership, delegation, fully connected companies. How many of you would like a job in upper management? Like creating your own startup, being the CTO or CXO in a startup, being a founder. How many guys of you are a founder or would like to be a founder? Or would you like to be in flexible project teams where people come together for a project, they work on the project, and then the team disbands and you do a new project, you know, like this really flexible way of working. Sounds good? John, already in that role. Awesome, John. Like to hear that. You are ready for the future. Anyone else? So if you're not responding in the chat, I'm going to assume that you're a lowly developer. And my assumption is wrong because Balajit is a CEO and architect. Awesome. So you're in the founder role. Rubem. Yeah, okay. So Bob, flexible teams are still challenging for small companies. Definitely. Sansolos, what do you think about that?
Well, I would like to inquire a little bit more. Why are you saying that, Rob? Bob, sorry, RTI Bob. Why is a flexible team challenging for a small company? Is it because they don't have the resources to collaboration tools are disjointed? Yes, but surprisingly, it's the same thing in big organizations. So what we need to do is a shift in mindset. I think we're very conditioned to think the old way, you know, think back of that picture with the pyramid and the consequences it had regarding how we organize the work. It's really hard to get that off our collective mindset. So it is challenging for small companies, but it is also challenging for big companies. I think it's the opposite. On small companies, the limits of positions aren't so clear. That's true, especially in startups when they are starting. Yeah, so I work with startups, and I do so when they have already had funding, because then they can sort of think about these problems. But it is true that a startup that is just starting out usually doesn't think about these things. They don't have the funding, and things are pretty chaotic. So it's not clear who is doing what, but everyone is doing everything. This is very true. Scrum Agile, that is definitely a step in the right direction. Stenli says, awesome. Okay, that's what will be the best team size for a modern team? So actually, a modern team is also one that you know, that there is no. It all depends. You know, I say always that I work with a systems thinking mindset and also a design mindset. In other words, I do not have a template. And I said, the ideal team has 15 people and that's it. When I work with a client, I always have to look what is, you know, the objective, what is the industry, what is the thing that they are trying to develop, what is the market doing in that industry. What does this team need to achieve, and then we decide what the right amount of people needs to be. So this really differs. You know, there are many variables. Mahen, great role. Are you often in a leadership position?
No, that was me. That was me answering Mahen.
Oh, sorry. And Bob says team size depends on application. Yeah, it depends on a number of things. Market, product, you know, it's a number of variables. So Balajit says, yeah, go, thanks. Yeah.
So yeah, I like this vibe that I'm getting from the chat, that small companies often have collaborative teams and they're efficient, and that large companies, it is really hard to get this up and running in large companies. And I've seen that too in my career. Large companies are often dinosaurs, very hierarchical, very command and control, very rigid, lots of silos, and they just don't want to change. They are completely locked into that mindset, that kind of thinking. Small companies are like, you know, fast moving, innovative, you know, like bring people together, change teams. So it's super flexible, super VUCA basically, and it's awesome. Now, think about the future. With all the automation going on, you can do, like now, if you have a company right now with 500 employees, in the future, you can probably do the same kind of work with 10 human employees and the rest automation. Because that's what automation does. It creates the same level of output with less and less and less people and more responsibilities automated away to software. So in the future, I think most companies will be fairly small. I think we're going to see lots and lots of companies that are just 10 to 50 people max. And they will have huge market value. You'll see companies with like $500 million market value with just 5 people, or $1 billion with 10 people. I think that's going to be very normal in the future. So all this stuff that Sansolas has been talking about, which is very applicable to small companies, I think in the future, small companies will be the norm. And this collaborative teamwork will be standard in all companies. And I think the large hierarchical siloed companies are going to go the way of the dinosaur. They will go extinct. What do you think, Sansolas?
I agree. And while listening to you, I was also reading a question from Gregor that kind of has to do with the same thing. He says, do you have any information of a large company with kind of a community mindset? Yes, there are some beautiful examples in Scandinavia, for instance. And there are, of course, some examples in Silicon Valley. But in general, what I am also seeing is that those big corporations that you were talking about that are very slow and are very rigid, some of them are starting to develop pilots. Yeah, I said that the most interesting work today is happening between departments and between teams. So they are putting together, experiments of people working as a networked interdependent group. So there is some innovation in that regard. But the companies that Marc is describing, about 50 people, 11 to 50 people, most of the innovation is happening there, actually. And someone else was talking not only about rigidity in big organizations as opposed to startups, but another thing about startups is that people are enthusiastic. So everyone is very hands-on. And that, unfortunately, is missing from big corporations.
That's so true.
Yeah. So, but there are lots and lots of consultants helping organizations change this mindset. So it's not an easy movement. It's not something that happens at a very high rate, but it is happening. So more and more organizations are realizing that they cannot thrive today if they continue to have these rigid structures. Yeah.
But if I look at the comments Bob made, 3M creates internal startups.
True.
If you think about that, it's kind of weird, right? You've got this huge company and they're in a VUCA environment, like lots of volatility, and the architecture of that company, the organizational architecture, doesn't work anymore in this volatile environment. So the only way that they know how to innovate is to create an internal startup. So basically they have to create this mini company, because only that mini company will be able to quickly move and adapt, to new challenges. So basically it's an admittance of failure. It's basically they're admitting that their large corporate structure cannot handle modern challenges anymore.
This is an interesting question. Would it be possible to transform a huge company in many small agile companies? Yes, I think it's possible. It's hypothetically possible, but it will take a lot of time, like really lots of time. But yeah, it is technically possible. In fact, we are seeing more and more project work. So many organizations are transforming into sort of project organizations. So if you do that over time, yeah, an entire organization could indeed change. But it depends on many things. Some of them are so large that it's like a really huge ship that it will eventually move, it will turn the corner, but it just takes many, many years.
So I'm reading a comment from Stenli that we quoted dinosaurs as being extinct. It was true from a lecture I heard from a Columbian University professor. So yeah, I mean, these are the trends going on right now.
I must say the biggest challenge for an organization is really mindset. And you were talking about startups within 3M. I must say I have seen startups, from other companies, big companies like I will name one of them, Seat, the car company, and they have these units that they call startups, but in fact they have the same mindset as the larger organization. So it's basically an experiment that looks cool on the outside, but that is not really different from what the mother company looks like. So really the biggest challenge, regardless of size, is the mindset. Yeah, we need to let go of this pervasive idea that that everything is organized in tasks or in departments, whether horizontally or vertically. We really need to let go of Henry Ford and his T model car. The world doesn't work anymore as an assembly line. That is the thing that organizations need to get rid of.
I can give a beautiful example to that.
Yeah.
I worked for a company 2 years ago. This was in Silicon Valley, and it was it looked like an innovative company on the outside. They didn't use Agile or Scrum. So basically what I did is I introduced Agile into the company, and I prepared everything, and the whole idea was that we're going to do software development in sprints, and it's going to be Agile. We'll have a product owner, so that we can very quickly, respond to the wishes of our customers. And then, of course, with Agile, you get this thing called a burn down chart. So, you're working towards a delivery, and then at a certain date, you're going to have this delivery, but you're no longer committed to absolutely having the delivery on that date, because the burn down chart gives you a probability. If you use software like Fogbugs, it will calculate this for you. So it will just look at your past performance and then extrapolate forward, and it will say, okay, you want to release your product on the 6th of April. It's 93% probable that you will hit that deadline. Just by, it does the Monte Carlo analysis, and it does a quick prediction. So I showed that report to a decision maker, and this was a guy high up, he was a CXO. And so I showed it and I said, look, so here's the deadline, here's the coming milestone release, and we have a 93% chance that we're going to make it. And I got into a huge fight because the guy was like, why isn't it 100%? I was like, I want 100% guarantee that you're going to hit that deadline. And I'm thinking, dude, this is agile. The world, it doesn't work like that. You can't do that kind of commitment. If you fix that, if you try to fixate that and treat a modern company like a construction project from the 18th century using Victorian era planning methodology, because let's face it, waterfall was invented in Victorian England in the 18th century. So if you use that mindset, then that's no longer modern. It's no longer you can't be innovative and think like that. So this was a company that looked innovative on the outside, but an executive had this 18th century Victorian mindset and didn't realize that just because he was thinking like that, he was completely blocking any attempt to introduce agile in the company. The company was just unable to shift to agile. And so, Sonsoles, when you're talking about mindset, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like a single person can derail an entire modernization program in a company just by sticking to, like, I want to be certain. I want to know 100% certain that this is going to work. It's like, no, this is VUCA. There is no certainty. Get used to it.
Just a few weeks ago, I had a session with a client. This is the founder of a very successful tech startup, and he's having problems with his team. So he has someone who is doing the recruitment internally, and this person can't quite figure out how to do it. So I was having a conversation with him. We are talking today about networked organizations, right? So I was telling him, if I understand correctly, you are hiring new people, and the problem is still not solved. And if I understand you correctly, what you would like is your people to be as motivated as you are to make your business succeed. And he was very shy about that, but he admitted, yeah, of course, yeah. He said, actually, I need to be realistic. I cannot expect that from my people, but what I heard in there was, yes, I want that to be the case. So I asked him, is there anything that you think that you could be doing in order to get your people to be more dedicated, more motivated? And his answer was absolutely baffling to me. He said, I should probably hire more middle management. So this is proof of how pervasive this assembly line thinking is still today. As a leader, you don't want to create today more distance in between you and your people. What you want to do is to create a network. So inserting middle management between you and your team is not going to be the solution. So it's all mindset, but this has been going around for centuries, and it's just very hard to make it go away. So yeah, this is something that we need to continue to create awareness about this. We need to ditch this assembly line thinking. It needs to go.
The cool thing is that anything that can be clearly codified into rules can be automated. So we have these executives in large companies really attached to very mechanistic way of running projects, of running a company. It's fairly easy to automate. I was telling you guys about middle management about to get automated away, because a software that completely replaces a middle manager is like in the prototype stage right now. We can easily take that up a notch. You can imagine in the future that the most of the responsibility of a COO or a CTO will be automated and will be done by software. And the more rigid the executive is, the easier it is to automate that role away. So the nice thing about the dinosaurs is that they are very quickly going to be out of a job because software is going to replace them completely. They don't realize this. Nobody sees this coming. But it's a fundamental rule of the coming wave of automation. The more rigid your job is, the more rigid your responsibilities are, the easier it is to tell a computer how to do it. And computers are always cheaper, faster, and better. So in the future, we will only have the kind of companies and managers and leaders and executives that Sensolis has been describing, because everybody else will be out of a job because their jobs have been automated away.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to watch that play out. I mean, yeah, what are these people going to do? You know, we're going to have lots and lots of unemployed people who became unemployed because their thinking is rigid and inflexible. Mm-hmm. And the only way that we can get them a new job is by re-educating them to no longer be rigid and inflexible. Yeah. That's going to be a huge challenge. You know, there's going to be loads and loads of people that are permanently unemployable in the future. And not because there are no jobs, but because their mindset, their view of the world is simply too rigid, and they have lost the ability to change, to be flexible. Yeah. So I think if there's one message, one value that we can give you right now, it is train how to be flexible. It's harder than you think. It's really difficult to be flexible, especially if you're in a tech job, because we techies tend to be very, very rigid, a bit rigid in our thinking. So being flexible, practicing flexibility is something you need to work on every day. But this is another skill that can save you in the future. Yeah. What do you think, Sensolis? I'm just throwing this out there.
No. It is absolutely fabulous. I think you should put that in a quote. You know, yeah. The more rigid you're thinking, the easier it will be to automate your job. I was going to say that basically in this transition, you know, this transition can succeed if the number of people who think alike is big enough. So we need to train ourselves not only to be flexible, but also to train others to be flexible, and not necessarily in a training setting, but like you need to surround yourself by people who are flexible as well, because when there are many of you, you know, then you can face all these forces that are against that flexibility. But right now there are too many people who are rigid. So it's very hard to produce change. It is possible, but it moves very slowly. Yeah, so the more people who are flexible and who inspire others to be flexible get together, you know, and move as a force against this other force, the more organizations will be able to make the shift. So in fact, what we need to do here, what we are doing, I hope is starting a movement, or not starting, I mean, already started, but we need to feed this movement so that true change is really possible. Because most change that you see in organizations is more like a gimmick, but producing lasting change means really, changing the software up here. It's,
Exactly. We have to reprogram our own minds, basically.
Yeah.
And be as unrobotic as we possibly can.
Exactly. Be as unrobotic as you can possibly be.
I see a comment from Rubem. He says, I do a lot of user support, so as long as there are users to support, I will have a job. Rubem, I'm going to be honest with you. This Google Duplex system that Google has can automate user support completely. Because user support is script-based, right? I mean, you got the user on the other end of the line, and then you walk through a call script. You know, it's a decision tree that you walk through, so you zoom in on the problem. And the only challenge right now for machines is that the answer of the user, when you ask a question, is not, the machines have to comprehend what the user is saying, you know, because the conversation can go into any direction, and you have to kind of steer it back to the script. Machines can't do that yet. Google Duplex is very, very close in achieving that. So I think end user support helplines, I give it 5 more years and it will be gone. The job will be gone because it's one of the easiest things to automate. So be careful. I hope your income doesn't depend on user support, because it's from where I'm standing. I mean, I work with machine learning software daily. It's not that hard to automate. All I need is the Google source code. I need to retrain it for a different domain, and then bam, end user support is 100% automated. So you made another comment. You said it's almost like houses. The ones which are flexible tend to survive more to earthquakes than the rigid ones.
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's hitting the nail on the head. Absolutely true.
So flexibility is one thing, and another important thing is the distribution of power. Going back to the example of the electric cars, it sounds counterintuitive for a leader, because everyone wants to hoard information and hoard power. But in fact, when you distribute that power, is when you become actually more successful. So that's another shift that needs to happen in the mind of many leaders. Today, many decisions are taken that are just good for one department specifically, and not for the rest of the organization. That doesn't work. Think about the cars. It brings me safely from A to B, but it brings you safely from A to B as well. And it brings everyone safely from A to B as well, because all that information is being shared. Someone's looking from above at the whole thing. So the same thing applies to organizations. Today, you cannot hoard power and make decisions that are good for you. You need to think of the organization as an organism. The decisions that I make need to benefit the whole of the organization and the business in our relationship with the market. Yeah, but these are tricky shifts. It takes a lot of, as I said, numbers. We need more and more people who think like us in order for this to become a reality.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a healthy use of power. It's like don't be authoritarian in your use of power. Don't rely on command and control and on micromanagement. Don't hoard information. You have to be like a servant leader. Right? You have to take a step back. You have to take part of your own power and give it to your team, and basically tell the team, I'm giving you partial autonomy to work on this problem and move in any direction you see fit to solve the problem. And then when a solution appears, as the leader, you can decide, okay, I'm going to run with this, or I'm not going to run with this. But you are no longer directing the process from step to step.
No.
You're creating this autonomous team that can go in a completely unpredictable direction, an unexpected direction. And you have to be at peace with that. And you have to be able to defend that to the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
And that's a whole shift. And many, many leaders nowadays, they are too scared. They are too scared to let go of that power.
Yeah. Of course, it has to be done, mindfully. That's why the delegation boards are handy, because there will be some decisions that only the leader can take. It makes sense, but the key is to give your team more and more autonomy in a way that indeed gives people enough space to do things as they see fit to do. Because today it's not just the leader who knows how to, who has all the information, but everyone is becoming a knowledge worker.
Yeah, I like that. Everybody's becoming a knowledge worker.
Yeah. So you need to have key decision areas, and then decide who gets to decide in this area, in that area, and in that area, and in that area. And sometimes it will be the leader, but sometimes it will be someone else in the team. So that can be organized relatively.
Exactly, because that's what you learn in your delegation training, right?
Yeah. So,
exactly.
Yeah, but it needs to be learned. Because also you don't want anarchy. You want to distribute the power, but you need to do that effectively. You don't want chaos more than there is already. So yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so we've been going on for almost 2 hours. So I think it's probably time to wrap this up. I mean, I'm sure you all need to have dinner, or get on with your days. So we could do one more question maybe, and then wrap this up. So first question in the chat, we answer. I'll give you guys 10 seconds, and then otherwise we just wrap this up. was an awesome webinar. I loved seeing the questions in the chat. Really awesome. The Q&A was great at the end. I mean, we've been talking for like 40 minutes just in this Q&A. And I think it's a fantastic discussion. So, Solis, I think we should just trim this Q&A off and use it as a separate video. Like it's the future of work brainstorm, Marc and Solis and friends.
So there is only one little thing that I would like to ask to all of you, and that is if you could put in the chat, you know, a word to close this. You know, what did you think of it? Was it useful?
Closing thoughts.
Yeah, closing thoughts. What did it do to you? We would like, we would like to have a little bit of love. So it's good.
Bring the love.
Thank you, John. He says, thank you for the webinar. I loved it. Anyone else who would like to say something?
Phoenix Gaming says, thanks for the webinar. Balajit says, thanks for the presentation. Bob says, thanks for the presentation. Rubem, you guys rock. Marc made me think I have to search for a new job. Oops. Sorry. Sorry, dude. I didn't do that on purpose.
Good to challenge our mindsets. Nice to hear.
Awesome. We challenge your mindset, Bob. I like that. Fantastic.
I feel it was very useful. Says Stanley, will both of you share the same courses? What do you mean with that, sharing the same courses?
Marc, very nice presentation. Nice discussion at the end as well. Very inspiring. Thank you. Bedankt, hè? Phoenix Gaming, it inspired me to know exactly what the next move. Loved it. Thank you. Rubem, please make the webinar available on demand. Yeah, we'll put it online. Don't worry.
Hey, so going back to what Stanley asked, and she said, will both of you share the same courses? I'm not sure what you mean, but as I interpret this, Marc will be teaching his course and I will be teaching my course. The only thing that we did together was this webinar, but the courses we do separately. Yeah, so Marc is the machine learning guy, and I am the team collaboration woman, exactly. So when you take Marc's course, you only see Marc, and when you take my course, you only see me.
Exactly.
Yeah. But webinars, sometimes we do webinars together. So
like this one. Yep.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, okay. Right. Good. Okay,
let's wrap this up. Thank you everyone for watching. It was awesome having you there. Thanks for the Q&A at the end. Thanks for your fantastic questions and your feedback to this webinar. And yeah, I hope we inspired you. Solis, any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you everyone. It was good to be here. Thanks.